Hello everyone. It's up to me to welcome you today and make the change. But it is good that you are joining us. If you are listening, it's been great to hear from people that have been telling us that they've been listening and what you thought of it. So please do keep on doing that. It's quite encouraging. Today we're recording in the morning because there was just too much going on last night for the next change. And we are looking at this Sunday's passage, which is Mark 9:38 to the end, which I am preaching on. I believe you're not. Is that right?
No, hello everybody. Great to be with you again. No, I'm not preaching. My colleague Cecilia is, and I'm not completely sure that she's preaching on this passage. So we might be looking at the Feast of St. Michael and All Angels, or we might be looking at this. But so if you're at St. Margaret's this week, you may not be looking at this passage, but you're looking at Holy Trinity, yeah?
Yes, definitely. We're doing 18th Sunday after Trinity, and we are doing Mark 9:38 to the end.
And it sort of fits in with what we've been looking at, don't we? Because we're still carrying on with the story going through Mark, so that seems good to do that as well.
That's why I chose these lectionary readings.
Excellent.
Okay. So shall we start? So this week we are going to read a bit and then talk about it, and then read a bit and talk about that. Just because there's a natural stop in the middle of the passage, I think. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll share the screen and you'll be able to see the Bible reading as we follow through. So we're going to look to begin with that, just these few verses, 38 to 41. John said to him, "Teacher, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he was not following us." But Jesus said, "Do not stop him, for no one who does a deed of power in my name will be able soon afterwards to speak evil of me. Whoever is not against us is for us. For truly I tell you, whoever gives you a cup of water to drink because you bear the name of Christ will by no means lose the reward."
So I have a bit of a confession for this one.
Okay, go on. Well, confession's good for the soul, Jenny. I can give you the absolution, so crack on.
I have previously, obviously not in preparation for this, I'm not that organised, but I have previously done a bit of research into verse 40. And when I say I've done the bit of research, what actually happened is it came up on a Wednesday lunchtime service, and Mark, the university arts chaplain, and I sat there and said, "Oh, whoever's not against us is for us. I always thought it was the other way round. Whoever's not for us is against us." With a bit of looking, we realised it was in twice. And then he went away and did some reading and research. And I continued, I don't know, to change the light bulbs or work out how the toilet's working or something, because that's what I do. And he came back with a blog post about it. So I have actually done a bit of research, and I was trying to find it.
Do you know where the other passage is? There is another one where Jesus says, because this came up in the commentary that I read in the little bit of research that I did for this.
It's in Matthew.
It's in Matthew.
And I can probably find it, because I think I did find the blog post. Hang on.
So just bear with us a moment, folks. Incidental music. What, Jenny does this? She looks for the...
I had it yesterday. It's in Matthew 12.
Okay.
Near the end.
What does it say?
Verse 30. He who is not with me is against me in Matthew. And in Mark it says whoever is not against us is for us, which is a very different thing.
Okay. So do you want to tell us about your bit of research? And I'll tell you a bit about what this commentary that I said.
So this bit of research picks up a commentary that was written in Greek by someone who is Greek and studied obviously in Greek. And he says that when we're talking in Mark, Jesus is talking about people. And when we look at it in Matthew, he's talking about spirits, and specifically demons. And it gets lost in translation a little bit. He said, I'm just scrolling, it's quite a long passage.
Okay.
But spirits who are not for Jesus are against him.
Okay. So shall I tell you what the commentary I read said? Yeah, I think
Yes.
this matters actually, doesn't it? Why does this matter? Well, because, who is with us or not is an interesting question as Christians, isn't it? That's why I guess it matters. And this thing of, even the thing that leads into this passage as John comes and brings his complaint is around saying, this guy's doing this stuff, the whole question of authorization. And are they authorized to do it? Are they allowed to do it? Well, those questions are still very much relevant today, aren't they? Who's allowed to speak in church? What right have they got to do it? All that kind of stuff.
It's a big difference, really, of eternal life. I mean, it just changes the whole thing. To not be against us just because you're not for us. Oh, I'm getting more confused now.
Okay. So
But
anyway,
not,
where did you say it was? It's in Matthew 12, yeah. So the difference is that I read is that in Matthew, and you did say this, is whoever is not with me is against me. And in Mark, it's whoever is not against us is with us. So it's not in Matthew, it's me, and in Mark, it's us, and it's us. So this is, if you're not with Jesus, then if you're not with Jesus, then you're against him. It's getting really confusing. You're not with Jesus, you're against him. And if you are, but that's not the same as saying whether you are with the disciples as followers of Jesus. So you need to be with Jesus, but it's not about the disciples defending their in-crowdness because they're still arguing about who's the greatest, which you remember we were arguing about last week.
yeah, I'm still not sure that really covers it, though, does it?
Okay.
Okay, because,
Tell us a bit more about why you think the thing
well, whoever is not against us is for us, is what we're reading today. And that's when you consider some of the teachings of, I don't know, you have to say this prayer so that you're a Christian, you have to do this so that you're a Christian. This is a far more inclusive passage. Whoever is not actively against us is actually for us. So it includes a lot more people. It includes so it includes all those that are spiritual but not religious that we hear so much, that have some faith that don't come to church. It's like whoever's not actively against, really,
Okay.
is for us. In Matthew's, whoever is not with me is against me. That means you've actually got to be part of the in gang, otherwise you're out. They are two very different teachings, unless we're talking about two very different things. But how, I'm not sure you can separate Jesus from the disciples in that way. Not when it comes to this teaching. Because what are you saying there? You've got to be with Jesus, but you haven't got to be. It doesn't. I don't understand where you're going with it, really.
Well, I suppose I'm not saying I'm necessarily saying it, but I'm just sort of trying to make sense of those. You're right. There is two seemingly passages with at least an apparent contradiction, but they aren't saying the same thing, are they? So where is it? It's in Matthew 12. Yeah, I can't actually put my hand on it at the moment, but
Matthew 12:30, I think.
30, yeah. Okay, who is now? Well, it is a different set of words. Whoever is not with me is against me. Whoever is not with us is against. Whoever is not against us is with us. So there is a difference between me and us, isn't there? Or are you just saying that Jesus? I mean, in one sense, I know Jesus does closely identify with the disciples. Why does it matter? Would be, I think, what's the problem here?
I think I've just said why it matters. Because
Oh,
one's
just say
very
it again for
inclusive and
those
one's
like
very
me.
exclusive. Well, you're not listening to me.
Probably not. No, that's not the first time. Okay.
Because I think the Mark passage is very inclusive, and I think the Matthew passage is very exclusive, unless this person is right, and we are talking about and it's such a long blog post. We should have looked at it before. Unless we're talking about spiritual life, because he talks in Matthew that it was about splitting the kingdom, and about Beelzebub and splitting. It's all about spirits.
Okay, yeah, so it's a different context.
Yes. Oh, here, let me quote from the thing.
Okay.
It's kencollins.com. It's
Okay.
from the.
Okay.
Now, I admit that the English text I've quoted makes it seem that Jesus is talking about people here too, but Theophylact, not sure that's how you pronounce it, spoke the language of the New Testament as his native language, so I have to take his insight seriously. If Theophylact is right, and we're talking about the Matthew passage here, Jesus is giving us an important and simple tool for the spiritual discernment, not to discern people, but to discern ideas and spirits. All we have to do is ask if the spirit or idea glorifies Jesus. If it does, it's good. If it is not, it's in rebellion against God and thus evil.
Okay, that's a really interesting idea. So, and in fact, what that's helpful, I think, in terms of you actually reading the post out, is that we don't have to get into the whole sort of spiritual warfare thing to see that ideas and what we could call philosophies and ways of thinking can be setting themselves up against God. Whereas the people, whereas you say with people, okay, yeah, I kind of like that. With people, it's much more inclusive and much more, yeah, okay. So it's a much greater. The presumption is that if you're not, so what you're saying is in the Mark passage, which is actually, of course, the one we're looking at, the presumption is that you're with Jesus, and that's not actually all the way we operate in church, is it?
Not always. In fact, often not.
Yeah.
And actually, it's not always that helpful for church, is it? Because that suggests that you don't need to belong to a church. But actually, if you just take this passage out of context, we then have some backing for those people that feel that they can have their Christian faith but not belong to a church. I would recommend that you look at the whole Bible, where the whole of the Christian faith is.
Why would you want to say to people then that they should come and belong to a church?
Well, because I think if you look at the whole picture, it is clear that it is always acted out within community. The Christian faith is about being part of a community. And one of the reasons that is because it's difficult and that community supports each other. And as I've said I don't know how you've preached for the last few weeks, but it's not about being comfortable. It's often about being in discomfort. And we need each other if we're going to be like that. So that's why, but also mainly because the whole thing is intended to be lived within community.
Yeah, but actually, as you say here, that's it's an open boundary community, isn't it? It's and I kind of like that idea that okay, because some Christian communities are very exclusive and want to set up very firm dividing lines and boundary lines about who's in and who's out. I mean, one of the things about the Anglican Church of England, for all its faults, which are undoubtedly many, is that it does have that sense of, we're here for everybody and everyone has a welcome here and should have a part to play in it because and that's the strength of it, isn't it? I think that's the strength of what we perhaps offer distinctively. Well, not completely distinctively, but there is a thing there that we offer.
And I think there's a comfort here in so I've been in previous parishes where the whole community uses the church for weddings, baptisms, funerals. They very much felt that it was their church and they went to it for all family events and all Christmas. And I think here we're saying you are part of the church. This is very much true. They got it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think a lot of us have lost that. I certainly don't get it here at Holy Trinity now. But I think they were right. This is their church. They are part of the community. And I'm pleased that they felt welcomed and they felt that it was their church and they were part of it, even though they weren't always there on a Sunday. I mean, to be fair, some of them went to so many funerals, they were there more often than my Sunday congregation.
But yeah, I think we want to say that, yeah, and I think it's true for St. Margaret's too. St. Margaret's doesn't just belong to the community that gathers there to worship. It belongs to the whole to the people of Barking. And I guess that's reflected in our case in the civic work that we do. So when we open it up particularly, so at St. Margaret's, we have a big Remembrance Sunday because we are the civic church for the borough, really. So we open it up for Remembrance Sunday, and we have the mayor making service, as they call it, where the new mayor comes in, and that's a really good occasion because you have all sorts of different people coming in to join us. People of all different sort of faiths are there represented. It's very much it is a church service, it's a Christian service, but we want people to feel welcome and that this is theirs, and I think that's an important thing for St. Margaret's to do in our.
So yes, if they're coming because they see it as their church, the church of the parish, the church of the community, then that's right, isn't it? That's what this passage
So
is
we're
saying.
drawing that out of this. Whoever is not against us is for us. So if you've got goodwill, we're here to welcome you. And yeah, but then I think it's interesting to have that contrast with the Matthew thing about ideas, isn't it? Because what we're not saying those ideas don't matter, although you think doesn't matter, are we? We're holding those two things in tension, yeah.
Yeah, I think when we post this, we could do with posting the blog reference.
Okay, well, when we put it on our YouTube channel,
so people can read it.
Blog reference, Jenny.
Particularly as we've name checked him now as well.
Shall we move on? Because we're already
Let's do it.
15 minutes into our time. So we're going to move on to the second part. So I'm going to share the screen again, and I will read through the next bit of this passage. So Jesus continues from verse 42. If any of you put a stumbling block before one of these little ones who believe in me, it would be better for you if a great millstone were hung around your neck and you were thrown into the sea. If your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life maimed than to have two hands and go to hell, to the unquenchable fire. And if your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off. For it is better for you to enter life lame than to have 2 feet and be thrown into hell. And if your eye causes you to stumble, tear it out. For it is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into hell, where the worm never dies and the fire is never quenched. For everyone will be salted with fire. Salt is good, but if salt has lost its saltiness, how can you season it? Have salt in yourselves and be at peace with one another. So then, Jenny, I'm assuming that as a part of your visual aid for Sunday, and I'm really glad you're preaching on this passage and not me, that you will be providing saws and instruments to gouge your own eye out as people come to Holy Trinity. So be ready, folks, to cut your hands off and be, self-mutilated, and make sure you've got the ambulance on standby because you're going to need them. Is that right? Is that what we're preaching on this week?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Well, that was easy, wasn't it?
It's not your usual picture of him heaven, is it? I mean, when I say to people, imagine it. I sometimes say to in baptism prep, imagine what eternal life will look like. I don't expect everyone to be turning up with severed limbs and eyes gouged out and
some kind of
hopping around, bouncing into each other.
So obviously we're being a little bit naughty, but we're not being that naughty because Jesus is using this incredibly vivid language, and he's asking us to think about it in those terms, not suggesting that we will be giving implements to cut our limbs off, but that is the language that Jesus is using it. So what's going on, Jenny? Help, what is going on? And obviously, we're reading things about hell, which I've also got a little bit of reading that I've done on, which will be interesting, I think, in a minute. But what is going on with this limb cutting off stuff? What's happening here?
So, cutting off the stuff that causes us to sin. That's basically where we are with this, isn't it? I'm just having a quick read as I'm saying it.
I think that's basically where we are, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think if we just put it as cutting off the things that cause us to sin rather than our own limbs, that makes much more sense. Jesus, just go with that. I mean, not that I want to correct the Son of God, but it was a lot easier to just say that.
Well, obviously, of course, but of course, we're not seeking to correct, but we are. But I think what strikes you, isn't it? What strikes me, I suppose, is that it is the vividness of the language, and I kind of, this is hyperbole, isn't it? And Jesus is emphasizing to almost ridiculous levels to make the point. Yeah, that things.
You're using your big words, but I know what hyperbole is.
Oh, I think people know what hyperbole or hyperbole, as I always read it, but exaggeration. He's exaggerating to make a point, isn't he? And I think it is,
and it catches your attention.
How much does he do that in other bits of his teaching that we perhaps take more literally? No Christian through the centuries has ever taken this literally. So to what extent do other parts of his teaching that we do take literally, is he also using exaggeration?
Oh,
Is an interesting question, which we might come back to when we come to the question in the next passage about divorce, which I think we're looking at next week, unless we decide to miss that one. But anyway, so
looking
let's
ahead.
come back to that. But I just think it's a little bookmark that I'm making there. So to what
You were
extent is there
definitely one of
exaggeration?
those people at school that used to flick through the textbook,
Yeah, but
weren't
I
you?
know you do that as well, so don't give me that. But also, yeah, okay. So what sort of things, yeah, causes
What
to
sort of
sin?
things?
What
Yeah,
is
what
sin?
are we talking about
What
that
are
we
we
can
saying
cut
sin
off?
is? What are we cutting off? Yeah.
So what are we cutting off?
I don't know that I necessarily want to answer that question. I mean,
Why? What are you cutting off?
anger. Actually, let's say
Excuse
anger
me.
as a sin, which I think, we
Okay.
can easily gloss over or not take seriously enough.
Excuse me, everyone, as I drink my water to stop me choking.
So anger. Okay, so anger, generally consider to be not a good thing.
Are we talking? Are we talking just things within us, or we're talking people, places?
Okay, I guess we could be talking about it, going to places that we like to go to, but we need to stop going, or what, seeing people who encourage us to do things that are not healthy for us. Is that what you mean? Or
Yeah. So it's that. I mean, that's a blurry line, isn't it? Because you can't just cut off everybody and blame them. But there are people. Well, you can't, can you?
no, we have to take
I'm going to
responsibility.
see nobody because you all caused me to sin. It's got
Yeah,
nothing to do with me.
I mean, it's not the nicest thing to say to somebody, is it? But yeah, okay.
But I'm not sure that you have to tell them. But yeah, there are times when you need to stop seeing people because that happens, I think.
Yeah.
The more extreme times, perhaps. Um, yeah, I'm interested. You went straight internally and I went externally. What and who can I cut off? Didn't want to look inside. They were. That's the difference between the two of us.
Well, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, are they? So, I mean, you could say, okay, if you take anger as a sin, what places or even people make you angry? And is that something which you need to deal with internally, or is that something which you need to separate? You need to remove yourself from the situation. I don't know. Both those things. There's not a single answer to that, is there? I mean, there are other examples, or things that, yeah.
I think the examples we've been given are very external. It's when like your limbs are here. not within you.
That was
There's a
beautifully
lot
done,
of
by the way.
teaching about being what's within you, but I think this time we're looking externally. We're looking at bits
Well,
that
I'm
you
interested to see that you consider your limbs to not be part of you, which seems a bit odd. I mean, given that they are I mean, they're not. Yeah, okay, that's all in your head then, is it? I mean,
yeah. It's a
but your
bit
limbs
like
are
if
part of you. You're all, that is not much closer than my arm. Here it is. I'm waving mine now, but yeah.
it's a bit like when your children do this and go, I'm not hitting you, but if you're getting in the way, I'm just waving my arms.
So I think we can hold both these things together, can't we? We don't have to make them oppositional to each other.
I was just
How do
interested that
you
you went straight
what sort of
into.
how do you define sin in these terms? What
I
is
would
sin?
go
What
simply
is
for
sin, Jenny?
whatever.
What is
What
it?
is sin?
What is sin?
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
That's a nice question for you.
Sin is anything that defies God.
Okay.
There you
Yeah,
go.
so
You can
not,
make of that what you will.
yeah, no, I think that's true. That not living in the way that God calls us to live, and it's not always
I mean, the thing
obvious.
is, most of life is sinful, isn't it? Because that's just life leading. Because we're not leading a perfect life. We're no longer, we're not that perfect heaven, and we're not in Eden as was originally created. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's do a little bit of
You
that
know
for
where
that
I'm
one. Bit
going
of
with
heady
that.
wobble, yeah.
I don't want it too literal, but you know what I mean. We're not in that kind of original vision, and we haven't reached eternal life where it's perfect. So everything really
So it's
that
tainted.
surrounds it.
I think it's true. It does taint our lives, doesn't it? I think that would be a general idea. And I think most people, I think Christian or not, would recognize some truth in that. I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but certainly that not everything's right with the world, even if we don't necessarily always acknowledge our own part in that not being right with the world. I think most people would subscribe to. Really, seems to be pretty self-evident. Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I think what strikes me about this passage is go back to the opening verse. If anyone puts us, what in one sense, what is the sin which Jesus is warning against here? If any, putting a stumbling block in the way of these little ones who believe in me. So this idea of, I mean, you could argue that what does that mean? Making things more difficult than they need to be, following on from, are you for us or against us, all that kind of thing. I mean, Jesus actually does reserve his sternest judgment for those religious leaders that are putting up lots of barriers between God and people, doesn't he? And when Jesus has people come to him who perhaps are not seen as living the right kind of way, he always welcomes them. He always gives them space. He always invites them to think about how they're living and live in a different way, for sure. But he doesn't go after them in the way he does with the religious leaders, does he? Who's he talking to here?
That is a bit that I hadn't noticed, and I am just going to highlight it. So it is about the people who are putting stumbling blocks in the way of him, isn't it? In the way of coming to him.
Yes.
If anyone causes one of these little ones in me to sin, is that where it is?
Well, verse 42, yeah. If any of you cause a stumbling block before any of these little ones who believe in me, it'd be better for you for a great millstone were hung around your neck and you were thrown into the sea.
Mine doesn't say stumbling block.
Okay. I'm in the NRSV here, but yeah, what are you?
Okay. Well, I'm in the NIV, but obviously I need to look at the Authorized King James
What does
Version
the
and see what
NIV
it says. The NIV says, and if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to be thrown into the sea.
Okay, that's interesting.
But a stumbling block is a whole different thing.
Can we come on and just finish to talk a little bit about hell?
Yes, because you've done some reading and I wouldn't want to stop
Okay, so commentary here. This is Hugh Anderson. I don't know who he is. He wrote this. Okay, so I thought this was quite interesting, and I want to end with this thought. So he says that obviously when we talk about hell in this passage, we have come with 2,000 years of Christian history and Dante's Inferno and all that kind of stuff, and red hot fire and other things that we probably shouldn't mention. And he says this, okay, hell in the Greek is right. So hell in the translation is a rendering of the Greek Gehenna, which should be retained in translation because of the misleading connotations of the former word. So he's saying that we should translate this than to go to Gehenna. Okay. But do you know where Gehenna is? Gehenna is an actual place. Okay. The term Gehenna,
an actual place.
An actual place. The term Gehenna referred originally to the valley of the son of Hinnom to the west of Jerusalem, where infants were once sacrificed to the pagan god Molech, 2 Kings 23, etc. And which after its desecration by Josiah became used as a refuse dump. So
I do know where it is.
Sorry?
I do know where it is.
You know where it is. There you go. It is important to notice, therefore, that what occurs on the lips of Jesus here is not a developed doctrine of everlasting punishment, but an affirmation in quite conventional terminology that none could be more lost than they who choose to renounce the life of the kingdom and cling to the life of this world and its fleeting powers. So I thought an more interesting translation could be you could almost say it's better than going to the dump. Or if you live in Barking, it's better to cut your lot than to be thrown into the Frizzle Lane recycling centre as a kind of image, as a place, right? So I just think it's so hard for us. And even when I was reading that commentary yesterday, I thought, no, I can't get that because we're so steeped in this kind of hell picture that, but what Jesus is saying really, and it's always like hard not to kind of still get drawn down that road, but what does it do if you think about it in those terms? So it's better than it is to be thrown into the waste dump. without necessarily all that other stuff that goes along with it in our thinking. What do you think?
You know what? I hadn't realised how ingrained it was in me too, that kind of teaching when you're growing up of heaven and hell. Because it sounds, well, it's just a rubbish dump, isn't it? It doesn't sound like something to be avoided at all costs. But it's probably better if you haven't got that background where you automatically go to. I mean, people just can't associate with hell, can they? That's the thing. And probably quite rightly. So it's better than going to basically the rubbish dump.
It's better than going to the rubbish dump. Yeah. And having, and you know, and it is better than going, but that's not to minimize what going to the rubbish, you know, better than being thrown on the scrap heap or, you know, or yes, I guess, and I'd be love
better
to.
Than being thrown on a scrap heap. That's the phrase you need to use. That's the one.
Okay.
That's it. Rather than better than going to the dump.
Because we
Because
generally
actually going to the dump is quite good. You get rid of loads of stuff. It's a good place to be. But better than being thrown on the scrap heap is the phrase, actually.
So I mean, look, people watching will make their own view about whether they think we're right about that. You know, I refer you to my commentary. You know, but I think what I'd say is as you evaluate that and think about it, that thinking is so ingrained in us because we bring 2,000 years of, you know, thinking about this. And, you know, and actually in the medieval period, of course, they went mad for all this stuff. And, you know, they loved all that kind of. So I think it's just about, you know.
People still do, don't they? People still like the heaven and hell. They like to know they're in and not out. I don't think that that's gone historically.
Which I guess brings us back to whoever's not as against us, for us, and all that kind of stuff. So we want to, I think what we're saying is God is more open to us than we realize, and that's an encouragement. And, you know, it's very easy to feel sort of condemned in some of these ways, but that's not what we believe Jesus is teaching here. Jesus doesn't want us to be thrown on the scrap heap, but he does encourage us, I think it's fair to say, you know, to take seriously those things that put stumbling blocks in the way of other people. And, you know, we need to be serious about following him in the right way and not getting things, either people or, you know, things that are precious to us, get in the way of that life that God wants to offer us. Is that what we think Jesus is saying here?
Yeah, fabulous. So you're going to come and preach that at Holy Trinity Forum?
No, because I'll be listening to Cecilia at St. Margaret's.
Okay.
Folks, do let us know what you think. You know, this is all about, you know, Jennie and I are not saying we've got all the right answers. We are very happy to have a dialogue. And so please do let us know if you want to discuss any of the matters that we've raised in here further. And thank you. We will be back next week. We will be back to talk. We're supposed to be looking at Mark chapter 10, which is going to be interesting. Who knows? Maybe we'll look at something else. Might have to do a bit of reading for that one. Okay.
We'll do Mark chapter 10.
We will do Mark chapter 10. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Catch you soon.
See you.